all one.
Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing today? Hey, guys. Hello to all of you at home. And we have a lot of beautiful people here in the lounge as well. And welcome, O1 family. Thank you all for being here with us today. My name is Bertine. Queen Lorraine will be our moderator on this beautiful day. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge that we are all guests on native land. This webinar is taking place on the unceded territory of California, home to nearly 200 tribal nations. We acknowledge and honor the original inhabitants of these ancestral grounds that we reside and work upon. I am currently in our All One Lounge at Dr. Bronner's HQ in San Diego County, which is on the ancestral tribal homelands of the Kumeyaay and the Luiseño tribe of indigenous peoples. This land has sheltered, healed, nurtured, and embraced them for many generations in a relationship of balance and harmony. We support the resilience and strength of all indigenous people worldwide. And now I would like to bring on one of the people who make all this possible, our Cosmic Engagement Officer, David Bronner.
Right on. Thank you, Bertine. And it's my honor and pleasure to introduce Leno, reintroduce Leno, my good friend, activist warrior, has done so much for so many, has rocked on so many different important causes. It's from GMO labeling and pesticide protection for farm workers to social justice of every kind, and working down at the border for all the immigrant families that have been trapped in all the horrible policies we've been having, and just an amazing man. And today he's joining us to go deep. Today is Mexican Independence Day, and he's going to go deep into the origins, the history, the meaning, the significance of Mexican Independence Day. And then also this kicks off Hispanic Heritage Month here in the U.S. And he'll be talking about, the rich Hispanic heritage and contributions here in the U.S. And yeah, really looking forward to this. And take it away, Leno. Thank you.
Buenos dias. I don't know if I really want to talk about what Dave said I was going to talk about. I want to tell you why I really came today, because I heard there were enchiladas. And so during the break between the two talks, my wife Carolyn, who's here, who's watching my diet, I'm going to eat as many enchiladas as I can before I have to give the next presentation, because food is part of the culture of America. Whether you're celebrating Oktoberfest, or you're celebrating Juneteenth, or you're celebrating St. Patrick's Day, we always have our drinks and our special foods, and that's part of what celebrates it. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about Mexican Independence Day, Hispanic Heritage Month. While we're doing that, let me just ask, is Michael in the audience? Oh, there you are. I don't have my glasses. I broke my glasses last night, and you cut your hair, so which is great. I didn't cut mine because I'm not cutting it till we get control of COVID. So it may be a many year before it. So somebody may have to braid my hair next time I'm here. I'm sort of jealous of the brother getting his hair braided, and I'm not able to do mine. The Mexican Independence Day was started because of, if you look at the history of it, it's almost the same as the American independence. Why did we do that? We were tired of being oppressed by the British, right? And the Mexicans were tired of being oppressed by Spain. Spain had been here for 300 years. This is part of Mexico and the indigenous people's lands. And so they were tired of it, so they wanted a change. They wanted to quit being treated like second-class citizens. Recently, people had always asked me what my DNA was. And I would say without being tested that I thought I was 40% Chihuahua and 60% Doberman. And they should never see the Doberman side come out. But I went and had my DNA done, a quick test, and discovered that I'm 42% indigenous. So the indigenous tribes of Mexico, because my indigenous blood, according to my DNA, is southern United States and northern Mexico. So this is also my land. And I'm glad to invite you, and glad that I finally figured out who I belong to over these many years. But you know, there's this priest in Dolores, Mexico, which is, I believe, near Veracruz, and he was really tired of the oppression of the Spanish. So he decided to call together the troops in his community, and most of them were indigenous people and poor farm workers. And they didn't have any guns. Most of them were rakes, sticks, and he kept ringing the bell on. It was I'm trying to get my date. It was September 15th, 1810. And that said, the Grito de Dolores means the cry from that city that he said that we're not going to be oppressed anymore. So he led this ragtag team. Sounds just like it was in 1776. They were not trained troops that fought. But in this case, it took them 10 years to get rid of the Spanish rule. And Father Hidalgo was killed in the process. And other people took up the banner. But 10 years of fighting for the freedom. And that should tell us that people across the world, when I worked for Amnesty International, you saw that they fought for the freedoms and why it was important for people to be free and have their human rights protected. And that's what we want to celebrate. You know, Cinco de Mayo is not a real celebration in Mexico. It's celebrated in Puebla, Mexico, but not all over Mexico, because the beer companies here found a way to sell beer and nachos. So they created more of a Cinco de Mayo atmosphere. So when you go to Cinco de Mayo, it's okay. But remember, our real important date for us Mexicans and indigenous people is September 16th, even though the Grito de Dolores came on the 15th, and the same for a number of other countries in Central America and Latin America that have the same basic Independence Day between the 15th and the 16th. And that gets us to celebrating National Hispanic Heritage Month. But I wanted to talk to you about some issues that are impinging on the indigenous people and others across this country and continent. But first, I want to go back to where I was yesterday. There's a guy who I organized who was an immigrant from El Salvador, Alex Sanchez, who was a gang leader when I met him in 1996 of MS-13, Mara Salvatrucha. And because of the influence of myself and people that were working with him, he left the gang life and joined us with Homies Unidos, an organization that I started in El Salvador, which is getting gang members of 18th Street and Mara Salvatrucha together to work together. And his son, who was 25 years old, who was suffering like a lot of our youth from a lot of demons and insecurities, had an awful car accident and passed away. So we were at Marlon's funeral and yesterday, and I was presiding, and it was an all-day event, which included cross-cultural. So we ended up at a Caribbean place where they work with youth so that they sponsored the reception and they gave us great food. But during the ceremony, because the family is not really tied to any straight religion, but they are tied to their indigenous roots. So we had a lot of indigenous language. We had Aztec dancers at the burial ground. The first time I've been to a burial, and I buried a lot of my relatives, is where we had Aztec dancers. And it really gave a spirit to what do we talk about the peoples of this earth, the original people, whether you're in Africa, whether you're in Latin America and here. Why is that so important to bring? because it's a spiritual side that we all need to keep us straight. And one of the things that's affecting all of us is this thing that we call climate change. So for us, you know, and especially the poor get the brunt of this, because we've seen the forest fires, the droughts, the floods, the hurricanes. The last people that have insurance to be covered that way are poor people and people of color. And so while FEMA may come in and help some people, the majority of the people don't get covered. And that's why, you know, when we were just in, Carolyn and I were just in Tijuana, and we're going to show you some pictures of the work we're doing there, is we're seeing more and more immigrants trying to come to the United States because of climate change. There's a drought, they can't grow the crops, so they want to come here and be called racist names, but also to raise money and feed their families. So one of the things that we have to do is to protect Mother Earth. And that's why I enjoy coming here, because this is a big corporation that wants to protect not only the products, make sure they're good from the countries that we get them, but also to protect and talk about why we have to have some environmental sanity. You know, and one of the things that's really getting to us is that COVID has really affected the communities of color, the indigenous, the Blacks, the Latinos, Asians. And right now we've had, that's why it was great that they were going to test me, you know, for COVID. So I started undressing and they said, no, it's just your nose, you know, because I thought David and Michael might want to see me naked. But when you look at it, we've had 660,000 people in this country die of COVID, and about 4,000 here in San Diego County. Most of them did not need to die. And it breaks my heart that we're not taking care of it. And some people, they're offering alternatives, medicines that don't work, like ivermectin. Some people in Mexico told me the other day that they had taken it and they now for the first time could talk to horses and cows and had an urge to sleep with pigs. And but I think we need to talk to people about why we need to protect ourselves. You know, I got the 2 shots when before they came out with the vaccine. I was on my own home remedy, which means a little bit of mezcal, a little bit of tequila, jalapenos. I said that'll kill anything, but it wasn't enough. So I was early on able to get my 2 shots, and I'll take whatever shots, not because I just want to live, but I don't want to infect any of the people that I'm around. And that's why I was glad that you have a good policy about anybody coming to this building that gets tested and that you use masks properly. And you know, before I get into my talk, I want to thank the Bronner Corporation here for, you've been, since I started working in Tijuana, you've given me all the soaps, lotions, and products to deliver to poor people. And it really makes a difference, you know, and I feel great giving people organic soap. And just recently we took some products and women's and children's underwear, because most of those people don't have. So some of our donors gave us some cash, and we used some cash that we got from Dr. Bronner's here to buy bras and underwear for women and children, because that's the most decent thing that you can do. Is they don't want used people's underwear, but you know, to have good, clean underwear and do it. And it was like a bazaar. You know, we put all the stuff on the table. People come look at the sizes, and it made me feel very good. And then about 2 years ago, you know, I was here speaking, and I saw a van out there, a Toyota van, 2009, and it looked like it hadn't been moved. So I had suggested to Dave and Michael that they had 2 options. One is they could either give it to me or just leave the key in it. And so they didn't want to call the police on me, so they gave me the van. So the van that goes over the border is the one that they gave us, and Bertine made sure that I had the proper tires, that it was checked by the mechanics who check your big truck. So that truck has had a lot of mileage, and I left it in LA today because they were still doing follow-up activities to this funeral and stuff that they had to move around for the family. But when I first got the van, it had all that blue and white lettering of Dr. Bronner's with all the messages. And, you know, I was driving it around and for a couple of months, and I stopped, I came out of a Starbucks, and some guy asked if I was Dave Bronner. And I said, yes. So, you know, Dave Bronner's has crossed the cultural line. And I got away with that a couple of times. And then I came out of another place where I was eating, and a guy said, well, you know, all these people are coming and reading the lettering on the van. And he said, you know, I met Dr. Bronner, Dave, and I go, well, I can't use that one. He said, well, how are you associated? I said, I'm his brother, Michael. And you look at Michael and I were sort of in the same chubbiness. You know, we have to have fun in this process. So if people say that the Bronners are now Mexicans, you can say they celebrated Independence Day properly. But I'll take on any disguise. I'm tired of being Magdaleno and Leno at times. But you know, one of the problems that we have in America is that we don't teach the history of everybody. Is in the history books of the children, the history books in the libraries, they do not talk properly about the indigenous people. They do not talk about slavery and all the lynchings and everything that was abused. They do not talk about taking land away from indigenous people, moving them, starving to death. They do not talk about all the contributions that Latinos made, the Jews made, that Italians made. And you know, what happens is that when people look at this, they go, well, what's wrong with this picture? Why don't people appreciate other cultures? If you weren't taught that we were not all Puritans coming on the Mayflower, then you're never going to understand the richness and the cultural difference of America. That's why it's important that we celebrate today. And even when they present history, sometimes they really get it wrong about what they say. And that's why I'm doing a lot of writing. I write for 2 Latino papers and some of my history, and I write about a lot of people because we have to educate ourselves and educate other people. And it's good in Bertin's introduction that we were reminded of this being indigenous land, and we're proud to be here and to recognize them. And one of my pet peeves has always been the Alamo, because you know, the good white Anglo brothers and sisters who didn't understand when everything would start going wrong, they say, remember the Alamo. Well, I want to remember the Alamo. And the truth is that Mexico gave independence to African Americans and ended slavery. A lot of African Americans, when there was an underground railroad that went north and one that went south. And African Americans who were closer to the Mexican border crossed. And the Mexicans gave the independence to Black people before the United States did. So in Mexico, this was territory, Texas and New Mexico and California. And so when they had this land, they sort of encouraged people to come in and settle there. And they were mostly Anglos coming to settle and coming west. There was a couple of problems with them, is they weren't treating the indigenous people properly, and they had Black slaves. So the real takeover by Santa Anna went over there because these new settlers that came in were not respecting Mexican law about slavery and about respect for other races. And so that's why Santa Anna came, and you know, they have this in the regular history books, they talk about Jim Bowie, the guy who's carried a knife about that big, I guess. And they said how he fought till the minute. Matter of fact, Jim Bowie was sick in bed. They also, that 50% of the white settlers that were at the Alamo fled before Santa Anna's army. They did not sit there. And David Crockett may have been there, they think. He was captured and executed later on, but he didn't fight. He surrendered early. And it's and then later on, Sam Houston came in with a bigger army and took the Alamo back. But I think we have to tell the truth about what goes on, because we have a lot of communities that were displaced, and when you look at communities that were discriminated, It was people of color, but we also discriminated against Jews. We discriminated against Italians. We even discriminated against the Finns. In Minnesota, during the 30s, there were signs, no dogs or Finns allowed. In Southwest, no Mexicans or dogs allowed. Why are they always discriminated against the dogs? That's what I want to know. Why don't they say no dogs or cats or raccoons allowed? So, but they, I think we have to deal with that because, when slavery was ended in 1809 in Mexico, and the emancipation for the freedom of slaves came in 1963, but it wasn't until June 19th of 1965 that all African Americans were freed, and they had to go into Galveston, Texas with the army 2 years after the general emancipation. And that's why we came up with the holiday Juneteenth, which I had been celebrating and my family had been celebrating for years, because we said we have to recognize African Americans' history, what Juneteenth meant, and why we all need to be, we're part of the same family. And so now we have a national holiday, which is Juneteenth, which is more important to me than Thanksgiving Day, which is a day of oppression for Native Americans. And but we have to celebrate all the days. And if we celebrate them just right, then we're going to be celebrated by other people. But if we don't celebrate people right, then we don't do that. And so, and the celebrations begin not just because we want to recognize that I'm going to talk about some major personalities, but because we need to celebrate each other in our own communities. It's not enough to say, I supported Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, Cesar Chavez, and not do anything in our own communities, in our jobs and where we live and where we worship. Hispanic Week goes from the 15th through of September to the 15th of October. Actually, I think we get 31 days if you do the calculus. So we sort of cheated them on that one. One of the things that we found out about 20 years ago, because those of you who are older, this looks like a pretty young crowd. I was here when there were still dinosaurs. So they call me a Chicanosaurus. But when I came to California in 1963, there were still dinosaurs and citrus fruit, and there you could not find Mexican products in the store. Mexican tortillas, Mexican chili, no African Americans, no collard greens, But shortly thereafter, about 30 years ago, salsa started out selling ketchup. So if you go to any grocery store, see how many flavors of ketchup you have, how many products, then go to the salsa aisle, see all the foods that are there. We're beginning to change America with the economics of things. And that's a real recognition. In my hometown, there were not tortillas to be bought in the store. My father, because he had worked in the kitchen as a young man, he was the best tortilla maker. So because we didn't have money to give for weddings or quinceañeras or funerals, so they would ask my dad, Marcos, to make 12 dozen tortillas. And even in golly fudge, I forget the exact date, might have been 75, 76, when I was working in Washington, D.C. Tortillas still hadn't gotten to Washington, D.C. in the stores, but they were in Colorado. So I went to Congresswoman Pat Schroeder's office, asked her office manager, the next time somebody went to Colorado, could they bring me 12 dozen tortillas? And I gave them the brand name. So they called me up, they said the tortillas arrived, which are important if you're gonna have a Mexican meal. And I went to the office and I was thanking Dan Buck, her office manager, and the Congresswoman, she said, why are you thanking him? I'm the one who brought the tortillas. Now that's real constituent service, when you can get them to bring it to you. But one of the things we have to recognize is that this country has a habit of going to war. And some of them, in all of them, we don't recognize properly the role of the servicemen. We surely don't recognize them after the war for protecting. But in the process, since we started going to war, we've had 61 Medal of Honor winners who were Mexicans or Latinos. And the first one was during the Civil War, during the Independence War in 1863. And and he got his for his valor in Gettysburg in 1863. Trying to read his name, Jose H. de Castillo, one of the same names as the guy from the independence in Mexico. And then the last one was Leroy Petrie during the Afghanistan war. So we have 61 people that got the Medal of Honor. And we have to recognize that that's part of our American history. And I want to talk about some of the people that are sort of famous that we hear about that aren't in the regular news as much as they be, like Jennifer Lopez, who's a Puerto Rican, Luis Rodriguez, a former gang member who's a good author, Oscar de la Hoya, the boxer who has COVID right now in his isolation, Luis Valdez, who did Teatro Campesino, which is the farm workers theater company. He also did La Bamba, Zoot Zoot, the films. And Luis I've known since 1970, which is a long time. I didn't see him for about 20 years. I walked into a room and I said, Luis, I'd like to introduce myself. He said, yeah, I know. You're Magdaleno, the troublemaker from Colorado. There's a guy who's, a lot of people don't know his name, Bert Corona, who was one of the great orators of the Latino community. He, for my sense, he taught me about the role I needed in 1974 on immigration, because my head was not turned around. I did not understand how we had to fight for freedom. And he was in LA and taught me how to do that. Then we have people like Edward James Olmos, who I've also met, who's been in a lot of the films, very good active community member. Alan Ochoa, the first Latina astronaut, 1990, and she did not have to go through immigration to get back in. And then we have Cesar Chavez and Linda Ronstadt, Dolores Huerta, who I worked with in the farm workers. Cesar died. Dolores Huerta, if you haven't seen her, you got to go to her website, Dolores Huerta Foundation. She's 92 years old, and she's more active than any of us in this room, talking about, and one of her major issues is climate control right now. Her issue, she's organizing people, educating, but she knows from her farm worker history, from her working with poor people, that if she doesn't speak, and we're on a group that with Danny Sheehan to try to get the new Green Deal for California, and she knows the importance of climate change, and Jane Fonda is in there with her fighting for that, because we know the importance. Another one is Jose Andres. You probably heard of World Kitchen, the chef. Andres is in business with one of our relatives, a Dominican, and they own jointly some restaurants, and we've had the pleasure of meeting him. But for this chef to take his money, later he got donations, and to go and feed thousands of people. There's people in Tijuana who get food at the shelters because of Jose Andres. And he's a Chilean, no, Spanish, right? Spanish. And he's when you look at him, and I'm gonna write him in the weeks ahead, because I need to honor him, because he's fed more people than almost anyone, especially during the pandemic. And he should be one of our heroes. And I hope one day you'll invite him down here to this community, so he understands the importance of what you do and how all of us are tied together. Another one of the big personalities that was really attacked during her confirmation is Sonia Sotomayor, who is a Supreme Court Justice. She's best friends with one of my compadres, our family friends, close family friends. So about 5 years ago, I went to a party at their house, in Halloween party that they have every year. And everybody goes in costumes. So my friend Betty said, I want you to meet a good friend of mine. And there's this woman in the devil's outfit with a pitchfork, the tail, and the red suit. And she said, this is Sonia Sotomayor. And I was kind of freaked out. I says, I didn't know she had the freedom to do that. But at those parties, we never take pictures because she goes in costume. Everybody thinks I'm in costume if I appear just the way I am. So I don't have to spend money. But I got a couple of dances, Sonia Sotomayor, and we see her about every year, and got to step on a Supreme Court justice's toes. And So now I just want to remind you that a couple of things before we get into talking about the program, that in baseball, before they admitted blacks into baseball, they weren't admitted. Jackie Robinson didn't start till 1947, but Jorge Pascual of the Azules de Veracruz, the Blues of Veracruz, recruited some of the first black baseball players in 1942, 5 years before, including Satchel Paige and others. So there was a cross-fertilization. But now I want to share some photos with you and talk about the work that we're able to do because of the van that was given to me. And I'm a Bronner, so, and the donations that we have. So we're going to look at some pictures. Do I have to step away or can I just stand? That's Carolyn and two of our volunteers outside their headquarters. There's me and Carolyn and volunteers. There's some kids, hold that one just a minute. This right here, this table, you'll see the women coming up and bringing their children. Is this, which is this table? Can you widen that picture or no? Yeah, so there you can see right up here, the women's brasiers. Down in here in the smaller packages are the underwear that we gave out, and we sort of, people come out and designate, you know, we call out certain sizes and people say, and then they take them and hold them up against their bodies or their children's body. But what is very exciting is watching the faces of the people to get this clean underwear and all the soaps when we get, because a couple of times we were able to sneak, they really try to control customs, how much you bring across. So I had to sneak these in. One time I had Bertine had given me like 30 or 40 big boxes of soap. They stopped me and charged me $400 fine. They said I was going to start my own organic soap company over there. Which is criminal because, you know, we say we're really taking it for poor people. But this is a good shot of the people. Tanya is this woman right here, but with turning towards us in black with a mask on, the multicolored mask. Her parents took her to the United States when she was 3 years old. They deported her when she was 20 and said that she crossed over illegally. When you're 3 years old, you don't have any decision about that. They told her she had a 10-year sentence. She's ending that 10-year sentence, and we're trying to raise $5,000 to pay for her attorney to get her back because she has a 16-year-old daughter who she has not been able to be with over the years. Her husband will not allow the child to come into Mexico. But she talks to her every day via Skype and phone calls. But she also volunteers doing a lot of work and helped us in the distribution. Can we go to the next picture? And this is my photographers and my wife, so I have to give her credit or I won't eat tomorrow. But this is, people send games over and there was an adult there and the kids are learning to play checkers and chess, which is, and in there you'll see in the back and some of the other photos, this is a warehouse, a cement warehouse where they have tents and the tents are about 2 or 3 inches apart and people lived there for months. And when COVID came, they used to have some of the people who had gotten jobs because you have to wait month after month to have your asylum hearing. And they couldn't let them go out because they might bring COVID back. And they couldn't bring in new people because they might COVID. And they don't have any place to isolate anybody. And nor do they have the medicine. Can we go to the next one? See, there's the tents. Living like that with your kids, minimal, you don't have a lot of place for clothing or personal items. And they take turns. Television and movie artists raise money to remodel their kitchen. So they have a kitchen now that is, and they get once in a while food from Andres. But they take turns cooking, some of the people. So there'll be one group who's cooking this time, another group that's cooking another. The same with cleaning, because you gotta live together in these conditions. Next slide, I don't know how many more pictures. There's another picture of the tents and the kids. It's a difficult living, and what you gotta know right now is that there's 29 shelters in Tijuana, and I deal primarily with one because I want to have an impact. When I have a lot of soap from Dr. Bronner's, I'll give one to an organization called Border Angels, because they can help get across the soaps and the food to other shelters, because they all need them. And but I think when you live in those conditions and you find out how clean it is, how clean the bathrooms are, because people are working on it together. And a lot of times I feel bad because I can't do everything I want for people there. And they said, you know, sometimes like we visit deported veterans, deported DACA moms. And when we were there, we were going to go and see Hector Barajas, who's a deported veterans. We deport veterans, right? And but they told us that he might have, had fever and coughing, trouble breathing. It turns out he has COVID, so he's isolated. They were able to get him across to the US because he got back his citizenship. So he's in a hotel in San Diego. Next slide. There's another shot of that. We'll go through the slides and then go to the next one. I don't know. There's women there with Carolyn and Tanya, and they're all from Michoacan. You probably have some employees here from Michoacan, but those are all Michoacan people. Next slide. That's it. Okay, so now's the question and answer. Normally you ask the questions, I get to ask the questions, you give me the answer. I mean, the question for me is, what can we do or what can you do to help people? Or do you have any questions about anything I presented so far? Do we have any from the web?
Not yet.
Okay, but Phil,
I can start off some questions and hopefully people in the room
Yeah,
might
Phil.
follow suit. A question would be, if you could expand more on some of the work that you've done on the border.
well, what it is you do stuff by necessity when you go there because you go on one intention. Like when we were first going there, Carolyn was the first one working for a legal program, Al Otro Lado, that does just great legal work. And she got me to go, and I found out about deported veterans. So I went out in search of them. And the moms, Tanya, who was studying to be a cosmetologist in LA before she got deported. And she went to Mexico and she was working for a maquiladora, those companies that process products there or assemble them. And she got tired of that and she wanted to go back into cosmetology. So she started getting her certification in Mexico and still going on. Through donors, we raised money to buy a barber's chair and a nail, one of those special nail tables. I don't have my nails done, but and hair iron and special equipment to cut hair and equipment. And so she's very happy, and and now a lot of women in the neighborhood want to come in and learn about that. A couple of times Carolyn met people, or we met people that were in detention when we lived in California full time. So we got them out of detention. They came through our home, asylum seekers. We also met a family that was one of the people that we were working with who came down in a caravan from Honduras. He told us there was a woman that was starving with 3 kids on 3 different trips. I went and I tried to find her and I couldn't. On the 4th trip, I was there with a group of activists from the Claremont, Ontario area. We finally found her. They had only 1 change of clothes, these kids in this family. They had no food, and we gave them all the money we could and then sent some more money later on. And Carolyn was volunteering with some friends in Georgia, and this woman got across her and got preliminary asylum hearing, and they thought she might qualify for a full asylum hearing, and she was in a shelter in the San Diego side. And if she didn't come up with family who would take her, or someone that would sponsor her, they were going to send her and the 3 kids back. And Carolyn asked a friend, and Ana Sousa, who runs a refugee village project in Atlanta, And she said, well, we'll sponsor them. So this organization and people in Atlanta, they got to go from Honduras to Tijuana to San Diego, all the way to Georgia in Atlanta. And there they are with the 3 kids, and they're adapting to US life. And she still hasn't gotten a date for her asylum hearing. And that's the one thing that we want to give people, is the right to asylum. But every time you go, you know, like I was told, there was a kid who was a former gang member. He left Honduras and he was all tattooed. He said, I don't want the gang life anymore. He says, I'll never qualify for asylum because they see my tattoos and they fear. He said, even though I quit the gang and I was threatened by the gangs. And so he was sleeping, working as a dishwasher in a restaurant in Tijuana. So we were able to take him a sleeping bag, some pillows, some blankets, so that he could have a bed. And then he sent us a picture, very proud, next to his bed. Something as simple as that. And so when you go over there, you're going to be given cases of other people that you can help. But a lot of times, like we know that when people are struggling, we have people in our own communities that struggle. It's if, you know, the best medicine you can give to people is your time to listen and to show them that you care. You know, this is better than penicillin, better than anything that you're going to do, because we have a lot of people that are having difficult times living, who may not have a disease, but have a need to be heard and for somebody to care about them. And so I think if we give them that medicine of our time, our medicine of our care, our medicine of our heart, doesn't mean that we have to solve the problems, but you have to do that. Because I got to tell you that, and these families don't think just because we saw them with smiling faces, there isn't depression. You don't know what's going to happen to you. But they want somebody to go in there and give them hope. And I know in my life, when I was doing drugs, I hit bottom. When I was doing violence, I hit bottoms. When I've been fired from jobs, I hit bottom. And it was taking people who love and respect and cared for me that were making me stand up. You know, life is not a smooth road. You know, if you look at all the people that powerful and changed our lives, like Cesar Chavez, like Dorothy Day, like Martin Luther King, like Malcolm X, like Nelson Mandela, Gandhi, it wasn't always easy. There are dark days. You have people that don't want you to succeed, don't want us to succeed. So when we talk about climate change, it's not just, you know, it's about all of us, because if you protect Mother Earth the way we're supposed to protect us, all of us are going to be protected. If we don't, we're all in peril. It don't matter how many masks we have. If the earth is polluted, if our water's polluted, the land is polluted, it's going to come home to all of us. Yeah, this is a mistake about inviting my wife, because she's telling me what to say now. I'm a free man, but I'm going to listen. She reminds me that I want to invite you to come to Tijuana sometime with me. When you come in, we'll arrange trips through here at the office, but normally we do a one-day trip, sometimes 2-day trips, and we stay over so that we can get a better feel. And we visit a number of different organizations. And it's interesting. It's nice that you listen to me, but when you listen to them or meet the kids, you'll never be the same. And I've worked with refugees and poor people. And when I went over there, it recharges my battery. I fall in love every time. And it really makes a difference. You know, what's that practice that y'all have when you bring in clothes? What is that day called? You bring in all the clothes that people haven't.
Donation drive.
Donation drive. Okay, yeah, whatever it you call it here, but I found out that they had like 20, 30 boxes left over. And so, huh? Buy nothing, yeah, and you bring clothes. So I know what you all wear now. Some of you are silly. But those clothes were all in good condition. I got about 30 boxes that were left over that people didn't take, because it's good that you were exchanging these gifts of clothing. But you ought to know that what was left over was taken to Tijuana, and it really made a difference in people. So even that, you know, when you're creative about doing that, and giving it becomes important. And people know of that. So even Alex Sanchez, whose son we buried yesterday, a lot of gang members have been deported from LA and they're there in Tijuana. And so Alex said, because he's been on he finally got his green card after 25 years. They tried to deport him twice, but Tom Hayden and other people helped him stop from being deported. So Alex finally got a green card. So I took him over to Tijuana to meet the people I work with. And then we had a little barbecue with gang members who've been deported. And I've known Alex and the gang guys in LA for 25 years. You know how nice it is? You go to Tijuana, there's all these homies, and they say, hey, I remember you, Magdaleno. What's up, Holmes? I said, well, what's up is I want some tacos here. Let's get it on. That's what's up, fool. But you know, they remember that. You have a question? Any questions?
I just wanted to really appreciate this, something that you kind of know, but just when you said it, how we privilege like Puritans coming over on the Mayflower, just our history, our official history of America, and just what makes America great is all the immigrant stories, Africa, Mexico, and obviously America wasn't voluntary, but everyone's unique contribution is what makes America great, and celebrating, as you were saying, celebrating everybody's milestones and history and understanding. Like, this is what's going to make this country awesome and great.
And it's amazing. You're right, and that's what I find, because I've had the pleasure of being in a lot of different cultures, and I'm always amazed. In my family, 3 of my sisters had the audacity to marry blacks. They didn't marry Chicanos, and we married white people. We have Asians in my family, indigenous people. Like my brother Robert, he grew up in the Cherokee Nation in Oklahoma. He's half black and half Cherokee. And he was proud of both of his cultures. And that's one of the things, if you look at the census, is that one of the biggest categories is others, which are the people that are of blended families. Like my kids are blended, and my son is half Asian, Thai. Our daughter is blended, and a lot of my nieces and nephews, and we claim 2 cultures, And I love the fact that, that when I go into a different community, that I can share their foods and the cultures and the dances, and honor that as much as I honor my own. Because if we don't respect each other, then what do we have? Because there's too much division between right and left, and people who don't understand that we all have to live together. We're here, and if we celebrate everybody equally and treat people equally and fight so that the real histories of people come in. Emma Lazarus, who wrote the language for that's on the Statue of Liberty, she's a young Jewish lady who knew what it was for her family to flee, and she was working in tenement houses where all the immigrants were. And when she wrote that poem that's on the Statue of Liberty, a lot of people fought it. They said that should not go on the Statue of Liberty, inviting the immigrant onto our shores. But she did, and you have historic people like Emma Lazarus on all parts of our history. If you find, there's a film called, what's the Mickey Dickoff's film on the Mississippi? But I forget her film, but she wrote a documentary. There was a film, Mississippi Burning. Then she wrote the family of Andrew Goodman asked that one of the young Jewish boys that was killed there asked to have a documentary written. And she went to the South and interviewed the guy who was the right-wing guy who really planned the murder of those people working to get the vote. And she could not, so she had to, she was interviewing him for 5 years, going in to Mississippi to interview this guy. She could never tell him that she was Jewish and that she was lesbian. or he would have probably had her killed. And he didn't find that out until later because, but she just kept listening to his racism and his craziness just to get the story out. Huh? Neshoba. So go on to, you can get it on the internet, Neshoba.
No, I have 2 questions.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right. From Aaron, first he says, I love this man. Thank you, Leno, for coming back to speak with us again. A true inspiration. How can we help with donations of undergarments?
Get my size first. Extra large and everything. The way you can do it is one is you can collect, write to your friends and everybody, collect the money, and you can purchase them, which some people do, and then they send them to me, and we can talk to you about the various sizes that people have that we've learned about, and or you can send the money to us and do that, or you can do, and we take pictures. I thought this was my lecture. My wife is over here involving, but you know, we learned that women are sometimes more equal than us. So, but the other thing you can do is if Dr. Bronner's wanted to do an underclothing drive, people could send their money to somebody here. They could do the shopping, and then people from here on the staff could go with us when we go to deliver, which would be a real joy. And so that would be, so you don't pay for transportation. So what we did is people send me like $700 and I did the shopping. And but if people wanted to do the shopping, what else? Huh? Oh, she did the shopping. Wait.
I think
Just
your wife should come up and show her face.
show your face up here. Come on up. No, come and show your face. Take the mask off. So you,
Oh, he hates this.
I hate people.
He was raised in a certain generation, and we're dealing with it all the time. So, no, he's amazing. No, we
Move over a little.
what do you want to
So
talk
you
about the
can see.
donations? Okay. No, the easiest way, you don't want to sound like you're always looking for money, but the easiest way is a contribution of money for donations. And so we can just buy them and then bring them with. We actually bought these outside of California, brought them with us, but we can buy them here in California. It's just, the point is that they be new, especially undergarments. And the other thing that would be very useful is sanitary products for women. Any kind of feminine hygiene products are very, very important because they're such disposable and they use them up so quickly. So, but the best way, I mean, people could purchase products that are new, and if they happen to have them from something that they did or they're new, they could send them maybe to, to our, our California address, and then we could take it over. So, but any of that is useful. But I would like to put a plug in again, because he didn't emphasize it. But if there is an interest, if there's an interest in making a trip, you can do this in one day. Great. Let's see a show of hands. Great. Look at this, honey. Look at this. You can do this in one day, actually, especially from here. It's so easy. You can leave in the morning and come back in the evening. And it really makes a big difference to go yourself and to be able to share this experience and then share others in your network. So I'm sure Leno would be very interested in helping, and I'd help him organize this. It would be an honor for us to have some of you come, a real honor.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The other plus is you get to travel with Michael 1 and Michael 2 in Dr. Bronner's van, which is filled with soap. One of the things that, how much time do I have left? Does anybody know?
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay, I want to talk about, and if there's more questions, but I want to tell this holy moly, this is the last time I'm bringing her. Yeah. You got to know, sometimes if you don't have people who are protesting you, you have to bring your own protesters. So I want to talk about prejudging people. And I'm guilty of that. When I see somebody's color, skin, or how they're dressed, or how they're walking, or how they're talking, there's things that have been programmed into us that make us prejudge people. And I do that even though I have a fairly good social barometer. But I have to tell you, if you notice, if you get close enough to me, those who want to kiss me, is that I have a new scar over this eye right here. I was in August 3rd, I was in Claremont, California, getting gas, and I was going in to use the service. I tripped and I fell and I hit my head square on the cement. For some reason, my hands didn't come out and busted it. And when you get a blow like that, and I've been hit in fights and accidents, and it just, everything just like, I don't know whether the stars or something, but it's not clear. All I knew is that I'd hit the cement, I was bent over, and I had a lot of little cuts in my nose and inside my nose, and I was bleeding profusely. And yeah, and my wife says that it looked like Muhammad Ali punched me 3 or 4 times, but I'm as fast as Muhammad Ali, and I float like a butterfly and sting like a jalapeno. He was one of my heroes who I did get to meet. So I'm sitting, I'm trying to get up bleeding, and this is a real busy gas station. Then I feel these strong hands on my shoulder, trying to get me to my knees, and blood's just pouring out. And he said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Well, I don't know." So he's running to the pumps, which are a way to get paper towels and stop the bleeding, clean me a little bit. And I asked him, "Why don't you go in this filling station and get them wet? Because they're kind of rough, on the cuts." And he said, "They won't let me in the gas station." So the guy's homeless. And he cleaned me up as best he could. He got me on my feet. And for the life of me, I cannot remember his face. I know it's back there somewhere. So we've been back to the gas station on this trip, I think 3 times, because I want to find him. The thing I know that he had very strong hands. I go, because I felt him on my shoulder, and then when he was helping me stand up, I go, "Man, this brother is strong." Because, I'm 250 pounds of dead meat, and they're picking me up and wanted to know if they should call 911. But I said, how can a homeless person do that for somebody? Nobody from the gas station staff came out and see if I was okay, right? They probably thought because I was, my raggedy pants, my raggedy t-shirt, and a little hat and bloody, that maybe I was a drug addict or I was another homeless person. But the thing is that we cannot prejudge people. A minister said maybe that was an angel that came and picked me up. But I just know that, because, when I can, I have food I give to the homeless, and, I give $1 or $2 here and there. But it makes a difference that you never know who's going to help you, who you're going to need on the side of the road, or your burning house, or some other incident that you need. And another incident, when I lived in Seattle, I had stops that I would make and going trips that I always knew the homeless people were going to be there. And Chris, this Irish guy who had a full beard, white and black beard, every time that I would go there, I would give him a couple of dollars, maybe 2 at the most. But he was a regular, and we'd say hi, and he knew my name. Say, "How you doing, Leno?" And one day, it was Valentine's Day, I was going, and I came to the end of the ramp, and the stop sign and Chris came out, I checked my wallet. The only thing I had was a $20 bill. Man, I don't want to give a homeless person a $20 bill, but it's all I had. So I gave him the $20 bill and he says, you know, that's a 20. I said, I know, Chris. And it's Valentine's Day, and would you be my Valentine? And he said, yes. And I almost started crying because I said, $20 meant more to him than it, but it meant more to him than the $20 was that I asked for his love. And he said, what can I give you? I said, well, if you ever want to get rid of that beard, you can give it to me. And he was glad that we can just give stuff. So it's not the size of the amount. And I always ask people when I give them money, ask for their name, because I want to make them real. And I give them my name, and I always say, it's great to meet you. Because you never know who's out there that's homeless. And because I know people that have come as immigrants who were homeless or went through bad times that were even born in this country, and they're able to turn themselves around and get better. So that's why I say we got to treat everybody as if they're like us, and we'll have a better time of it. Any last questions before we close?
There's a couple of questions.
Okay.
Unfortunately, for time purposes, we can't continue, unfortunately, with the bosses. Okay, so we do have a couple of questions.
Okay.
For those who have to go back to the line, please feel free to, but one question is from Lauren. Says, Ola Magdaleno, it's great to hear about all of your current work, and I'm thrilled that you are speaking to Dr. Bronner's team today on Independence Day. We met 5 years ago with Rick Chavez at the Hempcrete workshop
Right.
with ASFA. Would you speak a little bit about your food justice work in banning GMOs at the local level in Oregon from years ago? And also, do you have any of your poetry to share with us today?
Fudge. I don't have any of my poetry, but if people want, they can write to me and get it. I think I might have some on my phone. But the one is that, you know, I was a farm worker, and what we found out being in the union is that they put too much pesticides and herbicides on the products that come to us, and that they cause cancer. And Cesar Chavez taught us about that. The first place where DDT was banned in America, according to our knowledge, was under United Farm Workers contracts in the early 70s. Is that we eliminated DDT from our contracts. We also controlled what was going there. So when the GMO movement started, I was unemployed in Washington, and I'd seen in Washington the GMO labeling fail, and I heard that there was going to be a movement going on in Jackson County in Oregon, and I thought, Dave, I'm drawing a blank on our brother's name from Oregon, Brent Foster. So there was this crazy lawyer, environmentalist Brent Foster. He's a so-so surfer, but I've never seen him surf, but I would imagine he's got too much in his head to surf properly. And but he's a brilliant strategist. So I went to Cody Swift, another friend of Dave's and mine, and Michael's, and his cousin Karen Swift, who both have small foundations. And I said, I really want to be part of this movement, because I knew they didn't have much money. So they each gave me $15,000 to pay for my food and gas. I went down to Jackson County, and Dave and other people were involved in supporting this movement. And I went in and okay, thank you. And I went and I walked in the office and said, I'm your new volunteer. I organized Mexican farm workers. We did the first bilingual ads in Oregon, and also organized the dreadlock folks in there, because there in part of Jackson County, we have the Shakespeare Theater, and we have some very progressive folks, but Northern County of Jackson is very conservative. So that was left to the farmers. And we beat Monsanto, Syngenta, the Farm Bureau by 66% at the ballot box. And then we beat them in federal court. So in Jackson County, there is no GMO seeds, no GMO pesticides or herbicides. And that's what we have to fight for before the product comes there. And you know what was amazing is we made converts. We had a Tea Party farmer, very conservative, who had GMO products. His wife, along with some of our women organic farmers, were able to convince him to plow under all his GMO products. And he swore off against them. He brought us bags, showed us bags that the GMO, when you get a bag of GMO seeds, they ask that not be exposed to children or animals, and that you wear white gloves, and they make you sign like a 16-page document of non-disclosure, which is really bad. And if it wouldn't have taken a concerted effort, and then Dr. Bronner through Dave and Michael and others, we almost got labeling done statewide there. We lost by 300 and some votes. And so there's an appetite. And if you'll see, whether you go to Costco or more, there are shelves that say organic or GMO, non-GMO are increasing. And that's because of our pressure. And that's what we have to do. So, and I'm very proud of that. And I really push it. So in my house, I have GMO corn and non-GMO. So those people who say they're the same, I say, well, why don't you chew on this GMO corn? I'll chew on the regular stuff. See what you think. So this is a poem that I wrote called The Bad Hombre. This was right after people were saying about all the thugs coming over from Mexico. And so I said, I'm probably one of those. So this I wrote in 2016, something like that. I was much younger then. It said, and as a result of this poem is how I got into those 2 Latino papers that I'm writing for, because they read the poem and they said, can I publish it? And I said, yeah, and I also have thoughts on other stuff. And so this is, I am the bad hombre. And you have a lot of them here in Vista, in San Diego County. I'm the bad hombre. I'm the one they told you about, the bad hombre, the bad man. They told you to hide the riches, the children, the women, and on occasion, even Zipper the dog. They said I was sent by my government, loaded down with drugs, loaded down with evil thoughts of murder, rape, and uncontrolled violence. I am the bad hombre. Yep, you probably saw me. I had on a straw hat or a baseball cap. My car and clothes were not new, both worn like my back and the rest of my body. Sometimes you saw me bent over, harvesting something that soon would be on your dinner table, something fresh and beautiful for you and your family. All of it brought to you by the bad hombre. Sometimes I was in the yard with my weed blower or trimming your bushes, putting poisons in your weeds that burn my skin and throat. Sometimes I was washing your cars, making them shine and smell good just for you. I am the bad hombre that had his family making your meals, caring for your children, for your infants, cleaning your house and almost everything. But nothing but a truth commission could clean your history. It's too deep and too filled with hate for anyone to sweep it under the rug. I am the bad hombre who is paid in cash under the table while benefits are denied. I am the bad hombre who struggles to live a decent life while others all around us call us names tainted by racism and fear, making me out to be a monster that I am not. I am the bad hombre who somehow has become the foundation of your everything. I am the bad hombre, not your nightmare, but a friend, an amigo, who wants to dream and live in a better world alongside of you and all of the others. I want nothing more than a reasonable chance to believe in the moon and dance with the wind, to build a better world of peace and love for everyone under the sun. See, I am the bad hombre. That's a better one.
That'll be how we end it. Thank you for sharing the history of Mexican Independence Day. Thank you for your knowledge. Thank you for your presence, and we welcome you again.
And
Dr.
thank,
Bronner, anytime.
well, I look forward to the enchiladas.